together on Tuesday, August 3rd at 5 p.m. And I'd ask Lou to note roll call. We have Jim online, and I think everyone else is here. Village Board will convene into closed session pursuant to section 19.851E of the Wisconsin statutes for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. Discussion of negotiating strategy with respect to parkland dedication or payment in lieu of parkland dedication for Bear Tree Farms West, and with respect to amendments to existing development agreements and a new development agreement for Savannah Brook subdivision. And I think, Abby, you had an announcement you wanted to make.
Yeah, I got a really nice email today that I wanted to share with everyone, in particular village staff. An email from a resident. I'll just read it off. I want to give a shout out to the village for the work that has been done to trim the trees and brush along the bike path between Highway V and the Baki retention pond. It looks great now and easier to navigate while biking. Please pass this on to those involved. So kudos to village staff.
Thank you, everyone. It's good to hear. All right, we'll look at committee of the whole minutes from 7/20/21. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Bill. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Abby. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, items for discussion. 5.1, discussion regarding second quarter 2021 building permit report. Randy.
Hi. So just make this really brief. So we're officially into the third quarter, but this is second quarter follow-up for the building permit report for 2021. I'll just briefly go, over the numbers for this year. So as of the end of the second quarter, sorry, these numbers are very small from this far away. I'll make them a little bigger. We had a total of 80 units added to the tax base within the village. 54 of those were single family homes, and 26 units were duplex condo units. And then a light amount of commercial new addition and remodel for a total of estimated value that's been brought to the village for the first two quarters this year of $28.8 million, which we're on a pretty good pace to keep up with last year. As far as that goes, we do have some more commercial coming in that you'll notice on the third and fourth quarter reports. One of the things that I did want to point out to you is just the general inventory for the village, going through what has been approved by the village boards in the past. And the inventory is for single family residents, multifamily and duplexes is now down in the 500s. So what this means for the village is if we continue to do a growth like the second quarter, we're at 80 units. So if I were to assume that we did 20 more this year, there'd be 100 units. We're looking at what the current inventory that we have about 5 or 6 more years left of inventory that's already approved for development within the village. So just wanted to kind of point that out. The other thing too is today I actually took a drive around a couple of the areas because some of them are filling up. Park Crossing actually only has just a couple of lots left, and then that development will be complete. The Meadows, they are actually building on the last available lot out in that area. So as soon as that is built, that will also be complete. You'll see those numbers kind of catch up with the third quarter permits that came through. So I think that's all I'll add for now. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Okay,
Jim, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask Brandy, you mentioned there's a couple other subdivisions. Do you know how many lots are available, like with actually streets to it that we could do building permits? So I'm assuming the 500 that's platted, is that correct?
yeah, so there's a total of 500 and some platted. Right here are the available units in each one that you can currently. No, I think I'm answering your question incorrectly. This box right here is the number of units that are available on improved lots. So these are the actual available for sale. They can build right now and connect to infrastructure. These over here in the box to the left are everything that's approved, which could be unimproved lots, not having public utility service.
Okay,
Does that answer the question?
what I'm seeing is that we got 86 lots with improvements to them that you could permit. And then in
Correct.
2021, so far, we've got 80. So we potentially have a year of housing available.
Of current approvable permits available, correct?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, just a question on the CF apartment project, building permit. What's the status on that?
The status of the building permit?
Yeah,
Well, right now they have an early start permit for footings, foundation, and structure framework. They don't have the state approvals for a full building permit yet.
when do you think they'll come?
They said that it'll approximately be about 4 weeks.
Ooh, well, the crane has, it costs a lot of money. Thanks.
okay. Abby,
Just a quick question. I guess I'm wondering with that table on the left, total lots unimproved. Are those zoning demarcations pretty set, or is there some fluidity? Because if I remember right, with like Conservancy Place area, there's some parts that could be single family or multifamily, and I was wondering if there's some flexibility in those numbers.
Well, I think the flexibility could come, but these are already plats that are all platted out for specific sized lots. So a lot of the plats would include single family lots, but then the plat might have a larger lot where multifamily could go. And once development kind of moves forward or a project starts to move forward, you kind of hone in a little bit more on the exact zoning details of it. But a lot of these developments are all planned unit developments, so they already have the zoning requirements, that overlay what happens in those areas.
okay. Anybody else have questions for Brandy? If not, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, 5.2, discussion regarding second location for the DeForest Windsor Fire and EMS Station. Come on up, Steve. We have Colleen, who is also on the fire board, and I here, and Steve, I think you remember last time we gathered, we talked about remodeling the current station in order to deal with staffing needs. And tonight we're talking about out in the future, what are we going to do in order to deal with safety and coverage of our growing and extending community. So tonight, Steve is going to go over with us what the fire board has suggested for a location potentially for a second station in the future. Colleen, do you want to add anything, or do you want Steve to? Okay.
I think we talked a little bit about it last month, but what the fire board is asking from the village of DeForest is a agreement that once they start putting work into it, there's an MOU in place to, so one village can't back out on the other one once monies are spent. If I'm speaking for the board, but is that correct?
Yeah, I think essentially what we're being asked to do. You found in your packet a copy of a letter from the fire board. And I was trying to see if it's the first or the second one. And the first paragraph, the fire board members, along with Steve Lefebvre, Chief Lefebvre, had a meeting to set a motion on location of a second station and the expansion of the current facility. Fire board made a motion to support and recommend the Village of DeForest and the Village of Windsor support the location of a second fire EMS facility in Windsor Crossing Village Center on Northtown Road. And to recommend the Village of Windsor and Village of DeForest pursue the creation of an intergovernmental agreement. So that's really what we're looking to do tonight, is to get a thumbs up to instruct staff to work with Windsor on developing the agreement if we're in agreement with the location.
Okay. So what we did to come up with this station location is we do have in our software, which I unfortunately can't share with the board, mostly because I can't figure out how to get it go from my computer to yours. But it is heat maps all of our calls over the last decade. So we started there, we generated the heat maps. Where are we going most often? And obviously we're going to the south to match growth. There was at one point discussion of needing a station to the north, which is not a very good idea. Most of our service area to the north is contracted services. So building a station to support somebody that may or may not leave in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, didn't make sense. So most of our call volume, I think Kelly's got our spreadsheet put together. So what we were able to do is generate over the last 5 years, we took all of our calls, divided them down into types of calls, location, and volume. And I apologize, I got this to Kelly late, so it didn't make the packet. I had to go to the hospital. I broke my thumb somehow. So there's the last 5 years. And then we took down from all the municipalities, our top 20 locations, which is at the bottom, and just Google Maps sometimes using both our current station, the Northtown site, and a few other locations that were proposed to us from Windsor, like in the downtown area and their redevelopment, some stuff out by 19 and Lake Road. And most of the sites, I'm not the kind of guy that's going to put a fire station in the middle of a residential area that's been there for 100 years and start waking them up at 2 a.m. with the siren. That just seems like a bad idea for me. And then a few of the other locations were just not, the neighborhood wasn't kind of what we wanted to be involved in. So when we took the Northtown site, we broke down the times. A lot of our call volume, I think I figured today, over half of our call volume is to residents 60 years older and over. And a lot of those are in retirement communities, which you can see by the addresses. And then we just calculated what's it take us to get there now and how much time do we save adding the second station to the south. The downsides to this is right now Northtown Road is not finished, but I think that will be finished before the station is built. The roundabouts are there, but again, Northtown Road to the south would help us out. And we go around roundabouts right now, so they're everywhere. The only real concern I have is I don't really like the school there, but I think by the time the station's built, we'll understand the traffic a little better. That would be the only negative I would have with the site. So that's basically our response times there. We're reducing response times significantly to the residents of Windsor and the southern parts of DeForest, especially as we're starting to grow in the Farm and Fleet area. That's probably our longest haul for a DeForest resident or DeForest business. So, I mean, we're reducing sometimes by half.
Questions on the data? Abby?
Well, first, I just want to make sure, can we go back to the aerial map just to make sure, or maybe you can tell me verbally. If I remember right from last time, it's diagonal or kitty corner from Quick Trip and then right across Northtown from Harvest. Is that correct?
Right where the cursor is now. So across the street from Gingerbread House. Or yeah, I believe that's Gingerbread there. That little, yep, that plot right there.
So on the top of it is the cemetery?
Nope, cemetery is across.
Right, that's what I'm saying, on the
Yep.
top of the picture.
So 51 Windsor Road, just before you turn right to come into Forest. That's the Quick Trip there on the left. Gingerbread is south of that. And then, yeah, the Windsor Cemetery is to the north. So there's no longstanding residential development there. There's a lot of apartment units that Windsor's proposing in that area, but for the most part, we'll grow into the community. They won't have time to get accustomed to the quiet, for lack of a better term.
The timing on all of this, you want to talk about that, Steve?
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, the station, relatively speaking, is the cheap part. The most expensive is staffing. So the goal is we're looking at a timeline around 5 years to be able to ramp up staffing and be sure the fleet meets the ability to operate 2 stations. And that will be a significant increase. That's unfortunately coming one way or another. Our call volume is far exceeding our staffing levels as we sit now.
Bill?
What do you see for equipment? 2 engines and an ambulance, or?
Starting out, we're probably moving one of our ambulances down there, and then we would have our quick attack truck probably down there. Right now, I wouldn't be able to staff firefighters there. So I would keep the fire department itself out of home base here. And then as we added staff, I could move an engine down there.
Okay, thanks.
Rebecca?
Approximately how many, what kind of machinery do you anticipate eventually having there? As far as the trucks and ambulances?
Well, I would like to have, no, we would probably end up with an engine, a tender, and an ambulance down there, as well as a duty car. So whoever the supervisor would be, would have a car down there. Windsor's more likely to have a fire requiring shipped in water. So we would definitely have probably the bigger engine and the tender down there.
Steve? Thank you. Jim?
Yeah, I wanted to question the data, or how is the current agreement figured out? Is it based on the population of the communities? That's, I guess, what I was expecting, but I saw your call volumes are, to me, there's quite a big disparity, where I would have thought that Windsor would have been closer to the forest call volumes than what you showed on your chart. That different ages of population, you think?
Yep, different ages. I mean, predicting what calls are going to happen is very difficult. We've been asked to do it before. Windsor has more fire calls. DeForest has more ambulance calls.
Okay.
Why that happens? Probably because there's no interstate that's coded into DeForest. And it's either Windsor or Vienna. So that generates more fire calls. We probably have more country roads still in Windsor than DeForest. So that's probably why fire is higher than EMS. I would have thought as well that EMS was closer, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about how the agreement is set up?
The funding is based on equalized value of the communities, not on population or calls.
Okay,
No calls are, we, in our billing process, we charge residents of both villages and the contracted towns the same amount. But actually, who's gonna call? Yeah, we don't base anything off of that.
Jim, did that answer your question? Okay. Other
Yes,
questions?
thank you.
Other questions for Steve? I think part of what the fire board was suggesting we should do, oh, Abby, just 1 second, is plan far enough in advance with our budgets to cover these costs. And so hopefully it will help us to be in a position to make it operational if we can plan that far in advance. Abby?
Thank you. Just wondering about when you said earlier, the MOU would be set up so villages can't back out once money has been spent. I was just wondering, how that works, because I'm assuming there's going to be, well, does the negotiation kind of happen ahead of time and then we all agree on it? Or I guess I'm just wondering, if we get down the road and there's a disagreement, I mean, obviously, if we already committed to, like maybe paying for a consultant for something that we would pay our fair share, but I guess like if there were issues that come up after that, before money is spent, is that already worked out in the MOU or I'm not sure how that works.
Pass that question to trustee Little, who is a member, the vice president of the fire board. I'm not comfortable asking that because that would be at a government level. And that's not what they don't let me do that stuff.
I don't recall us having any in-depth detailed discussion on how the MOU would work. Jane? you?
Well,
Say something?
and I'm not just passing the buck to Al, but we would develop the MOU and go through the issues and our agreement on costs and location and style and timing and all of those issues. And, as we go through those, we'll have to come back to the board for approval and concurrence. And, if we had expended money prior to that, we'd certainly have to pay it if there was a problem. We couldn't go forward. Hopefully we could structure the agreement so that we wouldn't run into those sorts of issues. And I know that Al is really good at that. So he'll work with Windsor's attorney on coming up with a good agreement. So
I can speak since 2015, when I took over, we have not had a Village of Windsor or DeForest dispute as far as public safety goes of any further than where we were going to have a meeting. So from a public safety standpoint, Judd was the president. Bob's been with Windsor for quite some time. It always seems to get worked out fairly smoothly. So I don't anticipate any of that, but I think other parts of history are wanting people to put agreements together.
I think what we are looking for tonight, and maybe we have to do it during the board meeting, is simply a thumbs up that staff should go forward and work on an agreement. And I think that's kind of where we are. Steve?
Yeah, we can begin to work on that. I think it will be complicated because there are a lot of variables out there. Now Windsor owns the land, the CDA owns the land, they'd be
Right.
buying it from themselves. Their worst case scenario is the fire district doesn't end up there and they miss out on selling that and creating taxable space. So there is risk that if this doesn't come to fruition, the fire district doesn't locate there and you no longer have a place to go. So there's a lot to think about, but Abby hit on a lot of those. You need to know what the building's like. These types of things.
So I guess it's a two-part Are we okay with the concept? And it's not a vote, but the general location. And two, are we okay with staff moving forward to begin work on an agreement? It's thumbs up. All right. Looks like everyone is in agreement of going forward with that. Jim, I'm sorry.
I just want to say I'm in agreement and I don't mind the location. I think it's a good location, but my concern is working it into the budget because I personally have some like public improvements as far as streets and stuff that I think might be a higher priority or that's for future discussion. I just want to don't lock ourselves into the year quite so much because we might have to be fluid to get things done.
Thank you. Steve?
I know the initial purchase of the land was going to be taken care of with Windsor versus some impact fees. So yeah, when we start putting boots to the ground on station design, I think that's where the difficult stuff starts.
Yep. So, other questions? Otherwise, I think you can take your thumb home to bed.
All right, I'm out of here.
Sorry you got hurt. Thank you, Steve. All right, moving on. Reese, discussion regarding the athletic complex usage update.
Thank you. So I just wanted to kind of give an update to the board about how the usage at the athletic complex has been going for the first year. We have had a majority of our tournaments and summer seasons complete. So just wanted to kind of give an update. So one of the things that's a little challenging is that it's hard to give numbers to compare to because obviously last year was a lost year. And the year before, we were in the process of switching registration and reservation software. So it's not really complete between where we can kind of do an apples to apples. So the first report that I have that I put together was showing the number of bookings that we had at the athletic complex thus far and Fireman's and Yahara. And then showing the number of hours. So to kind of explain that a little bit more, the bookings mean it's like per game. For a tournament, that means it's like an entire day at a field. So it wouldn't be each game for a tournament because that would be, I think I would cry if I had to put all of those in. So those are more bulk where games are listed individually. So we had 491 bookings so far at the athletic complex this year. And when you total up the number of hours, so if a game is an hour and a half, that's added into that time. So that brings our total time at, we've had 124 days, 8 hours, 30 minutes that has been used at the athletic complex. That also doesn't capture walk-ins, which we've had a lot of kids that go during the day and they're playing on the turf fields or the dirt fields when we haven't prepped them yet. Or at night where there are kids that go after games and they play on the fields. It's pretty fun. If you have ever had an opportunity to go down there and see the usage, it's been exciting. And we've still had quite a bit of usage at Fireman's Park and Yahara. Clearly, it's a lot less than the athletic complex with 273 bookings and getting to 23 days, 1 hour, but still pretty happy with that. And then, oh, I just realized I'm not sharing this. Am I? Be more helpful. All right, there we go. All right, and now I'll bring up the other document. So going into the tournaments that we've had this year, we have had tournaments starting in May. So we did get started a little later than we hoped. One, due to staffing, and two, I think there was still a lot of concerns with COVID early in the year. And so that limited some of the tournaments that we were able to do. But We ran these tournaments this summer. All of them were quite successful. So we had 216 teams that came to the athletic complex this year. And we were able to work with the following volunteer groups, which we did a profit share, which I'll share in our next piece. But I did some rough calculations, which obviously these are not exactly on, but if you guess that each team has 12 players on it, that means we had 2,592 players that came out. And if each team had 2 coaches, which I think is a little low, it would be 432 coaches that were on site. And then if each player brought 3 spectators, which again, I think that's probably low as well, it would be 7,776 spectators that we had out there this year, meaning that we've brought in, almost 11,000 people into the community that have enjoyed the athletic complex just for tournaments alone.
Wow.
And then overall, with our first year of the concessions out at the athletic complex, I would say that we had a very successful year, and this isn't something that is over yet. We still have some additional opportunities to run concessions this fall for a fall ball league. And then we're exploring to do some youth flag football out there as well, which would give us some more opportunities for concessions. But total gross sales that we had out there thus far is $59,699.65. And based off of our point of sale system, which doesn't add in some of the waste that we maybe had, a couple extra hot dogs that were cooked and tossed, so they weren't included in our point of sale system. But our gross profits are around $37,531. And that means that we were able to write checks to these local groups for $8,193.38. And I know in talking with a lot of these groups, they are pining to get a weekend for next year already. So we're looking forward to working with these groups. I think everyone really did a great job. And I think it's a nice model that we have to go forward with. So that's the basic overview of how the athletic complex has been going so far, and happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
Abby.
Well, just first wanted to say thank you for sharing that information, because if people remember a few years ago, I was like kind of one of the skeptics, and I was had different concerns, but this is really reassuring, because I was hoping at the time, I said, I hope I'm wrong and that it works out really well. And this is really positive information to share. So I appreciate it. And I don't know if you could also share, I think you shared it at our Parks Ad Hoc Committee meeting, if I remember right, that it's also brought in a lot of business to our local restaurants. If you want to share about that, because that was really, really good to hear. So
Yeah, I'll actually pass it over to Stacy, who just thankfully happens to be here tonight. Her and Michelle have done a great job reaching out to businesses, and Stacy has been a main point of contact of having that communication.
Thank you, Reese. I'm Stacy. For those of you who don't know me, I work for the village. I've been an admin here for 6 years. Recently just moved to a new role as community ambassador. As for the restaurant business outreach, that's something Michelle and I have been working on, reaching out to businesses, touch base with them before tournament weekends to give them the heads up of there might be an influx in patrons coming. And we also have been doing follow-ups with them as well, after the weekend to see how things are going. We've had positive feedback from all of the restaurants that we have spoken to, even the hotels that are in Vienna, have all been booked, and the restaurants have been super happy. I think the number one thing we've heard back from them is having the staffing to support the amount of patrons coming in. Some of them had said they were still kind of glad that their restaurant maybe wasn't at full capacity because they don't have the staffing involved to support if they were at full capacity at this moment. But otherwise, everyone seems happy. We plan to do a follow-up in 2 weeks with all the restaurants to see how the season went and if they have any feedback for us to go for next year.
Rebecca.
Thank you. I really like hearing that you're doing that, because one, you're giving the restaurants and businesses in town a heads up. you know, hey, this is happening, you may want to have a few extra staff on duty, but also following up to see how things are going, because that's how we can gauge our future growth. So kudos, love it.
Bill?
Yeah, I've been out to about 6 of the tournament weekends and Thursday night ladies softball. The last time I talked to somebody, they were from Shullsburg for a tournament, and I asked them if there's any comparable facilities like this in their area, and they said they have to go down to Quad Cities for anything like that, and they really enjoyed the facility. I think it's well kept. It's presentable, and I haven't heard any negative comments, just positive, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a great park staff. Keith and everyone that works out there does an amazing job of keeping that.
When I drove by the other night, cars were everywhere. It was great to see. It was really full. Seemed to be a lot of excitement, but it led me to ask, do we have enough parking? We do.
Yeah, I mean, to this point, we have never run into an issue of needing to have overflow parking or anyone even parking on Innovation or anything like that. So our parking lot has always had spots.
Great, great. Thank you. All right, and moving on, administration and finance update. Lou?
Hi, I don't have anything formal planned. I was asked to talk about this a couple of hours ago, and it's been crazy couple of weeks in the clerk's office between my personal life of moving and being on vacation and just professionally training a lot of people in transition. But a couple of updates to give the board. First of all, a hot topic that lots of people are interested in is getting the videos on our village website. I have a meeting with Levity when they're here 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks from this Wednesday. We are attempting to establish an FTP site that's open to the public, that people can download videos, but they can't re-upload anything. What that does is it maintains the integrity of the video so that nobody can edit it and relaunch it without it being the original video, the original way it was recorded. And it also still gives them access. That sounds really easy to do. It sounds easy, but it's not easy. So that is in 2 weeks. This is the next time I have a meeting on that. So that's the update on the videos on the website. The next was the text search on the OnBase Agenda website. That was something that we had when we were on OnBase 18, which is the version of OnBase that we had prior to our current. When we switched to Foundation, that went away. We didn't realize it till somebody brought it to our attention, which happened while I was on vacation. We looked into it. I had a meeting with the OnBase reps actually this morning. And it's a bug. We are set up correctly for that box to appear. It's just not appearing. So it's been escalated to the makers of OnBase, which is a company called Highland. And as soon as they can figure out how to get that bug fixed, we'll get that updated. So I appreciate people bringing that to my attention. And that's the update I have right now, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions? All right, thank you, Lou. Police Department? I don't think you're Chief Olson, though.
I'm a lot better looking than he is. For those in the room that don't know me, I'm Bob Berg. I'm a lieutenant with the police department filling in for the chief tonight. He's away at training. He sends his regards. Not much update with the PD this week. We are in day 2, moving into day 3 of our Youth Citizens Academy. We have 8 bright, young, wonderful stakeholders who are participating in the Youth Academy. They range from 7th grade or going into starting the school year, 7th grade to 9th grade. Many of them have expressed interest into getting into law enforcement. If you're aware or not aware, we have a CSI in the Park that we partnership with Parks and Rec. Covers a young range of stakeholders in the community. And then we have our Adult Citizens Academy, which will be coming up this winter again. we took note that we were missing a pretty significant age group of youngsters in the community. So we developed this last year. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we couldn't implement the program. We were able, fortunately, to do it this year, and it's turning out great. The kids love it. Full smiles. We did EVOC, which is emergency vehicle and control training today, and they absolutely enjoyed it. Other than that, everything is rolling smoothly across the way, and I'll open up to any questions.
Any questions for Bob? Okay,
Thank you for being here and stepping in for Chief. I do have a question in regards to how we as a community can help support these types of initiatives. 8 is great, but I'm pretty sure you would love to have at least double digits. And it seems like those are middle schoolers. I'm not sure if you got any responses from the high school. And so I was just wondering if you could brainstorm about how we can support and really get the youth active and involved in the community. I know there's, like a fire, academy coming up, maybe possibly, but I was just wondering if there's ways we could support you, because it would be nice to have a robust number of youth participating and spreading the word and engaging with their guardians. And really facilitating a more family diverse approach in the village.
Sure. I would like to table any way that you guys could support us, because you do support us quite well, and we absolutely appreciate that. Being our first year, I'm sure we're going to work out some kinks and things that we need to develop moving into next summer when it comes to this program. We've already identified some branding or some forecasting or publicizing issues initially, one of which we kind of targeted by age range when we initially put it out at the end of the school year last year. And that was pretty much where we marketed it between our website, the village website, and within the schools through our school resource officer. We decided next year, and we kind of changed it to this year, but I don't know if we did it in time, where we're going to change it to grade level, because I think that incorporates that range that we're looking for from our young stakeholders in the community. And I think we'll get a lot more interest in the program that way. The other thing too, everyone likes to lean that crutch on COVID, but unfortunately, we still dealt with that moving through the spring and into the summer. We weren't entirely sure that we were going to be able to hold the program again this summer, but grace of the power, we were able to do it. And it's really great that we do have at least 8. But I think changing that dynamic of how we're marketing that now, changing it towards grade level, because we did field some questions from some parents who have younger students, younger stakeholders that are advanced in grades, and they would ask, well, we kind of put that hurdle in there that they would have to call in and ask or send us an email and ask. So by removing that in the future, I think we'll get a lot more interest. And I think word of mouth, I know some of you have come and participated in our Citizens Academy. Really appreciate that. I think word of mouth from this, the excitement that the kids are going to get it, they're going to talk about it amongst their friends. Next year, it's just going to blow up from there. And I think we're going to get a lot more participants. The end of that, I would tell you that it's completely free. We don't charge people to come in, a lot like the Adult Citizens Academy, for good reason, because we want to invite our community stakeholders and people who partner with us or have misunderstanding or don't understand what law enforcement is and who their police officers are here in DeForest. So we don't like to charge for it. The officers volunteer to come in and teach. And we do pretty well at it. So if you want to stop by, we're going until Friday, graduations 9 to 1. You guys are always more than welcome to stop in, check it out. It's at the police department. We are moving about the area of the community so we can show them the inner workings of what it is to be in law enforcement. So absolutely come on down and check it out if you have time.
thank you. Any other questions? If not, we'll keep on moving. Thank you. All right. Public service update, Judd.
Yes. No, the question was asked, what's happening at River Road and is construction stopped out there? It's not stopped. They're still working on it. It's in a couple different phases. There's a retention basin being put in behind Village Walk that was blasted, and they're working on that section. They have to bring the blasters back in another week or two to blast sections of River Road where they need to put in pipe. They're also waiting for that pipe to get delivered. There's some everywhere there's shipping delays, right, in the supply chain stuff. But they're still moving dirt. They're still working on it. And then as we go along, we're still trying to figure out when we're going to actually close River Road, because we're going to backfill the old River Road with dirt that we're taking from the current site. So we'll be sharing that information with the board when we have it. Hope that answers the question on River Road. Sunfish Pond parking lot should be paved this Friday, and then next Monday, they'll be putting down lines, and so people can use that parking lot. That's looking pretty sharp. If you haven't been by it, Jefferson Street, they'll be milling that the remainder of this at the end of this week, and then early next week, they'll pave that. So that will be done, including the new turn on Brun Street. In Sunnybrook Park, the mulch should be going in either tomorrow or Thursday. And then they'll be getting the concrete in. There's a sidewalk connecting from the gazebo to the new playground structure. And they'll be putting the swings and stuff in, and hopefully that'll be done in the next 2 weeks. So that park will be open very soon. So.
What questions on those things for Judd? Bill?
Yeah, I went by Sunnybrook a couple days ago and it looks really nice. It's gonna look nice with mulch. The Sunfish Pond, originally it had 2 entrance and exits, and now it only has 1.
Correct. We had to adjust that because the grade of that would have made it a difficult transition with the northerly entrance to that parking lot. So we adjusted that and just have 1 in and out there.
But there's 2 cutouts on Bellflower.
Correct. That was, it was staked out to have the 2 entrances, but they didn't realize that we adjusted the plan. So we've asked them to come back and remove that cutout and put actual curb in there, but they just haven't gotten back to do it yet.
Oh, okay. I just kind of thought it was a safety issue, having the 1 entrance exit. It could get congested, you know. I always think of the worst case scenario. It would have been nice to have 2. I wasn't aware that the design changed. Especially after the additional expenses, we had to go through the haul additional material. You probably would have had to bring a whole lot more material in to bring it up to get the second entrance.
I don't know how much more material, but it would have been a really uncomfortable experience for people to get in and out of there with it's a pretty steep hill. I never realized how steep it is until you get out there and see it. It's a rather arduous incline. So to have the ramp come in, they would have had to come back down at an awkward angle to get into the parking lot, and it would have been the same trying to get out. You'd be going at different angles.
Was that anticipated from the beginning or just kind of an oversight?
I think it was once we got there and we're really into it, we saw that it was not going to work that way. So we had to adjust.
Okay. Jefferson Street, I went out there the other day, and the spillway over the old sidewalk. I just eyeballing it, you know, my level eyes. If the spillway where the sidewalk dips, the old sidewalk, looking at it before, water would go over that, flow down Jefferson Street to the west. Now just eyeballing it, the new island curb looks to be about 8 inches higher. So if water ever does come over that spillway, it's got to go uphill. Just the elevations, you know, if the water comes over that spillway, where's it going to go? The street appears to be about that much higher.
Help me. Where are you talking at? What's this?
Where the inlet is for the ditch.
So right at where the old driveway entrance was, just to the east of that a little bit, you're saying?
The top of the ditch where the inlet that goes underneath the street?
Hold on, I get it.
At Bruns and Jefferson.
Right,
At
It'd be
the
on the-
outfall.
it'd be on the east side. That sidewalk. There's a spillway. That's designed for the overflow in case the ditch does fill up. You know, in one of those 180,000 year floods. Oh, yeah, right.
This way?
Yep. It appears that it's about 8 inches lower than the street. So the water was supposed to go to the west down Jefferson if that ever did overflow. And I was just wondering if you could just check it with the engineering, the elevations and how water, you know, just to my eyes, just eyeballing, it looked like water can't go uphill. And if it ever did overflow, you'd have like an 8-inch big puddle there. Or pond.
We'll check into it.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
No, thank you. Economic development update. Randy has something for us.
I do. I just have something real quick. It's odd to speak under economic development. I just wanted to give you a quick update on the Edge Apartments out in Conservancy, just so you can kind of know where things are at. I'm sure if you've driven out there, you've seen some earth movement happening. They did get an early start permit for footings and foundation. Excuse me, through the state. And then they also received their early start permit from the village as well. That did cover earthwork, grading, footings, and foundation. And then at one point, the structure for the parking started going up, which was not a portion of the approved early start permit. So we did put a stop work order on the site and worked with the developer. Found out it was an oversight. There was a box that wasn't checked on an application that went to the state. So therefore, the parking structure was not included in that early start permitting process. We did receive today the conditional approval from the state to allow for structure framework to be included in the early start permit. So we have reissued an updated early start permit for them to allow them to continue with that construction. So that's where things are at with the permitting process. We're still working forward or working closely with the developer as we go through all of the processes, just to make sure that everything is in line and in check.
Thank you. Questions for Brandy? Bill?
I had a few residents out there with concerns about the dirt piles that they have. Are they required to cover them or seed them in any way?
They're not required to cover or seed them. What they are required to do is put up erosion control measures, which they do have in place out there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Rebecca?
Yeah, related to that construction, I'm wondering about the ability of people who aren't authorized to be able to just walk in there.
Yeah, so we have,
fencing up.
I'm sorry.
There's no fencing up.
Right. So we have worked with the developer on that as well. They have ordered the fencing. It's just, again, a matter of supply and demand and getting it out here. I did confirm with them today that the fencing should be installed by the end of this week. So that should be in place. They did, when we put the stop work order on the site, they did go to the site, had some welders secure the structure that was already built so it wouldn't fall over. And then they also boarded off the stairway so that way kiddos couldn't get on the site and do anything there. So.
Steve?
Can you help share what our ordinances say about fencing?
Sure. Our ordinances do not require that fencing be put up around the construction site. So it's not something that we would enforce. It is a safety thing. It is a liability for whoever trespasses on the property. things of that sort, but our ordinances don't require that construction fencing be installed on any construction site. It goes for the same for single family homes, you know, they pour the foundations and leave the open foundations, and it is kind of an at-risk kind of thing for both the property owner and anybody trespassing.
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
That is all I have.
All right. Do you? Okay. Good. All right, we'll keep moving then. What can I say? Moving on, community promotions and communications. Corey, do you have anything?
Stacy is here to talk.
So again, I'll reintroduce myself. I'm Stacy Harmon, filling in for Corey, who's going to be having that baby soon. I have been with the village for 6 years as an admin. Like I stated earlier, we've done some reorganization with us admins, and I have now landed in the role as community ambassador. I've found myself working a lot with Reese, Michelle, and Corey as we work to promote the village, residents, businesses, and beyond, and had the pleasure of joining the comp plan team as we are working towards the community workshops that are going to be coming up in August and September. With Corey stepping out for having that baby, I've stepped in, and we are working on our marketing strategy for getting residents to get engaged, get involved in the future of DeForest, and joining us for this community workshop. We have 2 dates, and I'll take you through a quick presentation of what our outreach has been to the community. So first of all, on our website, you can always find all of our information. We keep our community calendar up to date. We have direct links right to the comp plan page. We have created a social media plan. We have the events created as of launching the event. Both events have reached over 440 some residents that are interested in or have seen the events. So it's getting out to the public, and obviously we will keep scheduling out posts and making it known to the community throughout the next month. We've been sharing it on Twitter and on Nextdoor. So whatever your social media platform preference is, we are getting the word out. It also went out last week in our monthly newsletter. This is something that we send out to residents, either email or text, on how they prefer to sign up. Last week's email went out to 1,991 people, and our text messages went out to 289 residents. We had a 46% open click rate, meaning that the resident actually didn't just scroll past our email, they clicked it open. So hopefully this was on the top. Hopefully they maybe looked further into it. Again, we'll publish it in our August newsletter. We are working on a postcard mailing. It actually was sent to the printer today. This will go out to 4,500 addresses in DeForest. We are doing our best to narrow down multi-units, senior living, all that. Gathering those addresses are a little bit challenging because they are listed in our records as one address, and maybe they have 4 apartments. So we're doing our best to capture the audience in that way. Using the postcard easy QR code registration, a 1-step process. Michelle and I will be going around the community to hang up posters at the 55 and over communities, apartments, businesses. Again, these are all places that we can't reach with the postcard, and just to keep spreading the word. And last but not least, when you use that QR code, it's an easy registration form that the person needs to complete. We are offering childcare if the resident does require that. And so far, we've had 16 people register since Thursday, which I think we're pretty jazzed about for starting. And we'll hopefully keep growing.
Wonderful. Good job.
Thank you.
Comments or questions? Abby?
Thank you very much. This is very thorough marketing strategy, so I really appreciate And I guess this is more of like a comment for any village residents that are attending or watching through Zoom. If you would be able to, if you come across these social media posts, share them, because I know if you're already watching the meeting today, I know you probably think community input is very important. But I feel comfortable saying that we would really appreciate your help in spreading the word, and by sharing the posts, or if you get an email, forwarding it to other people that live in the community, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. We'll move on to Reese. Do you have anything?
Just real quick, just wanted to mention that we do have Yahar River Fest that's coming back this year. It will be on Saturday, September 11th at Conservancy Commons Park. We'll kick it off with a memorial for 9/11, and then plan to do the rubber duck race and have a lot of those festivities back.
Great. And do you have anything on pool? Oh, I'm sorry, Rebecca, I didn't see your hand.
Just a quick question on the basketball courts. Any ETA on getting those two fixed?
Yeah, so it is a 4-week lead time to get those rims. And we're actually also doing some research to see if we can get breakaway rims, because the problem was kids hang on them. So it's going to be a while. So we're kind of waiting to get prices on that before we actually purchase the other rims.
Thanks for that update.
Yep.
Okay. It looks like we're combining our closed session with the regular village board meeting. So if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, here we go. We're going to take 3 minutes and start our village board meeting. All right, thank you. I'm going to call the regular village board meeting to order on Tuesday, August 3rd at 6 p.m. Will you note roll call? And I would ask Bill to lead us in the recitation of the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, move on to announcements. Village Board will convene into closed session pursuant to section 19.851E of the Wisconsin statutes for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Tonight, discussion of negotiating strategy with respect to parkland dedication or payment in lieu of parkland dedication for Bear Tree Farms West, and with respect to amendments to existing development agreements with a new development agreement for Savannah Brooks subdivision. All right. Consent agenda. Minutes from the 7/20/21 meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Colleen. Any discussion? Rebecca?
Yeah, under the appearances, I would request that we add that I had questioned you and you had denied trustees the right to question residents.
All right.
I'll accept that.
Did you make the second?
I don't accept that.
I just didn't hear you. Are you accepting her? Okay. All right. So we didn't accept it. So moving on with the motion as it, Rebecca?
Are we going to discuss it at all? Because it did happen.
You have an edit to the minutes. We heard it. It wasn't accepted. So we have a motion on the floor. I would ask our legal counsel, do we need to discuss it?
There's no discussion allowed on consent agenda items. They have to be separated out and acted on separately.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries. All right, moving
Jane,
on.
Jane, can you note that I abstained? I had some technical difficulties and I didn't get to hear the motion.
Sure, we can note that. Did you get that, Lou? Thank you. All right. All right, now we're going to go on with appearances. We have kind of two sets of appearances tonight. We have some actual business with Waste Management and Savannah Brooks and Bear Tree, and we also have some folks who want to appear on the pin seeker item. So I'm kind of dividing up the groups here, and we'll start with the people who want to appear on pin seekers. So I would ask that Anne Marie Priest come forward. Again, we're looking to limit our time as it's specified on the sign-up sheet.
Hi, Anne Marie Priest, 4599 Sunburst Drive in DeForest, in Conservancy Place. I saw that Pin Seekers is looking for an extension to let the farmer harvest the corn and to allow for bird migration. I think that's disingenuous to try and kind of greenwash this and delay for bird migration once. They migrate twice a year, every single year, not just this year. Pin seekers is a definite danger to the wildlife in Conservancy Place. It's right near a wetland. It's going to have parking lots that'll have salt, that'll have car pollution, oil. Things are going to get into that wetlands. Those nets are a danger to birds. It's a danger for during migration and just during any time. Birds, of course, they migrate at night to avoid predation from hawks. So the bright lights are going to screw them up because they use the constellations to migrate. It's the noise, the traffic, the pollution, and especially the nets are going to be a danger. And I really didn't appreciate saying that we're going to, do all our wildlife a favor to let them migrate once when they do it twice a year, every single year. This was a bad idea to approve this in a nature conservancy. Thanks.
Thank you, Anne. Eric Larson.
You can start the timer. Since the last meeting, we have learned after the vote for pin seekers that he needs an extra 2 months to allow for crops to be brought in for the bird migrations. I find this not only insulting, but extremely short-sighted on the board's actions due to the fact it made it very clear the birds were not of issue. Mr. Woffers made that, and or anything about the field itself. I have lived there long enough to know that the corn is brought in much sooner than October 1st. And that in fact, you all stated you wanted to go through with this as soon as possible. I have to insist that the original timeline goes through as originally charted by this board and that no extensions are given. If not, the board is showing outright intent to cover further regettes, and the facility most likely due to the fact they cannot secure the funding needed to build, which leads me to an unpleasant realization. Madam President, you have continued to treat this town and her citizens as second-class people. You've allowed others to speak freely, giving extra time while silencing others for their views. You have intentionally to hurt citizens for their views and have shown misconduct in the process. With your pernicious and calculated ways, you have steered the board towards decisions that are not only unwelcome by the taxpayers and the residents, but also have consequences for your positions and theirs. You demonstrated outright contempt for this town's bylaws with inimical and prejudiced ways of leading this board for your own personal outcome. When it came to agenda rules, you no longer serve the community with confidence that the people have entrusted you with. I demand now that you resign from your position immediately. You have done this to yourself. If not, the people of Conservancy and DeForest will be prepared to have a recall election next April, where all the dirty laundry will be aired, and you will be put in the position of defending your allegations. We will make sure you are removed by this town and once again be represented by people that actually care about the residents.
Thank you, Eric. Brian?
Brian Goodman, 7804 Blue Stem Trail. Here is a citizen of DeForest, no professional affiliation. I promise I don't want to come up here and talk about bad things all the time. I do want to approve stuff and I want to say good things about things that are coming to this town. But like others that spoke before me, I'm asking the board to say no to the extension for pin seekers to December 1st. I believe the two examples given of why we need it are not valid. The crops are something that had been there. That is easily something that would have been looked at all the different TID sites that pin seekers was looked at and should have been taken into account. The bird migration, we can go back and watch the tapes on that. There was smirks and kind of disregard to the bird migration. Now all of a sudden it seems like it's a big deal. As trustees, you all are our elected officials, and as such, we put a lot of trust in you all. And this pin seekers thing gets me so passionate, and you gotta look at how it seems to us as the citizens, especially ones that live so close to it. It seems like it was rushed. It was pushed through. A lot of hundreds of public opposition forms were sent in. And as a result, it still got approved. And now things that were brought in light from the public that were approved by the board are now all of a sudden an issue. I believe this is the first red flag of what will possibly be many as his first development. I just ask that you all look at this and what next? What's the next red flag going to be? This is a contract. He signed it. You all approved it. Let's keep him responsible for that, just like I would be for anything that I sign. So I hope you all take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. No more appearances for pin seekers.
I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules and go to 10.2 at this point. Resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute a First Amendment to Development Agreement with Pin Seekers DeForest LLC.
We have a motion to suspend the rules and move to the item regarding the pin seeker contract. We will return to appearances, yes. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. We don't need to discuss it, so. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Jim, I just didn't hear you. Did you vote?
He said aye.
Okay,
I went as an aye also.
thank you. All right, so we are going to move to 10.2, the resolution 2021-079. Michelle.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to kind of explain what was in my memo and try to make some comments that might make it more clear about why this is being suggested. So I'll start by saying that construction commencement dates in the agreements are something that I always like them. I like them, and in consultation with Attorney Reuters, you do not tie up tax base, not working when things are, not wondering when things are going to develop and how that happens. So I'm a fan of them. They can also be difficult. And quite honestly, there was so much going on that evening that it was passed on July 14th, that it was my intention to ask that we change the date. And that was my intention. And I did not do that. And it wasn't because I wasn't thinking about it, or I wasn't cognizant of it at that time. So the request is more driven by staff than it is the developer. However, there's no doubt the developer would appreciate the timing. There is some doubt that the developer would have enough time to be able to submit for their review site plan sort of thing, to be able to do construction by October 1st. So, and what I wanted to talk about that's going to be done during this time, staff had committed to the community to look into the bird migration mitigation issue. So we wanted to honor that and look into that. So that was part of it and why I put it in the memo. And really that was just to do our due diligence in the time frame that we had to give us a little extra time. And the ancillary benefit is that, and this is something that came up later, that the corn actually would not be wasted. So my understanding is that's a lease on the land. And that is something that is going to be harvested in October, at the latest early November, but in October is my understanding of when that's going to happen, so as not to be wasted. If it is wasted, that's fine. The developer, the owner of the land, has an issue in his lease with the farmer that basically they can do it at any time they want to. So the corn would be wasted. There's no breach of any contract there, but it's just for the basic, being able to harvest it. So that was why I brought that up. But really, all in all, we should have changed that date at the time of the event, that we did that on July 14th. And it was really driven by staff. And as I said, that's really so that all of the paperwork and things, we can do our due diligence on it and not rush it too fast. So I think Steve has something.
Steve?
Yes, furthermore, and I think it's in your memo, the agreement was drafted a couple months before, and it was before P and Z tabled this, before the village board didn't take action, before the village board heard again from the community a couple more times on this issue. This was stalled out in government process for a good month and a half, if not 2 months. That's why staff is recommending this. It was intended to be brought up on the 14th, as Michelle mentioned. In fact, I think the three of us talked the next day and said, oops. So it was at that point in time, we decided that it needed to be brought forward. We did meet with the folks from Pin Seekers and said, do you think you can do this? And they said, it'll be hard pressed, especially as Michelle had pointed out, there is intent to do the study on bird migration, not to delay it so the bird can fly through this fall. It's about doing it the right way, as staff has asked for.
Thank you. Questions? Abby?
I appreciate the explanation. And that's what I was going to point out. And I'm glad you mentioned that about the bird migration, that it's to give more time to look into mitigation measures, which I did hear some concerns in wanting to work through that issue, both with myself and I know Trustee Simpson, who voted in favor. Also, if I remember right, he can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe he said he was committed to working out those kind of things to get the best development possible for the community. But I guess my follow-up question is, can you go into a little bit more detail about that study and who's who's funding it? I don't know, any details that you might know right now?
I don't have any information about a study or that. It was to really to look into the issue more than because it had been brought up by the residents. So I don't have any information about what type of study, who's going to do it or fund it or that sort of thing. But you know, we can certainly share that as that's brought up.
Steve?
I would think the obligation would be on the developer to do that. If there's concern with the board that that be a conflict and that the study be done by the village, we could consider that.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, I'm kind of confused though about the bird migration. I thought the biggest concern was birds getting caught in the net after construction. I don't recall ever migration. A couple of those bulldozers and dump trucks aren't going to affect bird migration. The corn could be chopped right now for feed. It's not like it's going to go to waste. In another month, 2 months, the nutritional value will be up there. Probably by, well, depending on the weather, if you don't get any rain like it has, you aren't going to even have ear corn of any acceptable measure on that corn anyway. So majority of this corn in this area is going to be green chopped silage. They could do that next week. They could do it the last week in September. December 1st, we could have snow. We've had snow before the first week in December, a foot of snow. We've had below 0 temperatures at Thanksgiving. I remember going out hunting opening weekend and freezing my, you know what, off. And it gets kind of late in the construction cycle. I could see moving it a few weeks, but 2 months is out of the question and they need to get going on it. Who knows what next summer brings, spring rains. They can't get started. I know there's a lot of what ifs and what we can not do in the agreement about excuses about materials, pandemic, things like that. But I just feel they need to get going on this. Time is of the essence. Thank you.
Any other comments, Rebecca?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same thing about the corn. The issue with the bird study, that we don't have any information as to what's going to be done with that, when it's going to be done, et cetera, who's going to be doing it. That leaves me with a lot of questions as to why we're even considering giving an extension if that's not even been discussed as to the details of that.
Michelle?
Yeah, I think, and I'm sorry that the word study kind of came into it because I think that what it is it's mitigation efforts. What Mark Roffers talked about before is what are things that can be done with the nets at the site to mitigate problems with the birds. So that's what we're looking into. So the fact that it kind of got rolled into like a study, I don't think that's the case. I think it's really what are those mitigation efforts and that we know that we need to look into what those efforts are going to be and then be able to communicate them. So that's really what we're looking to do in that realm.
So would that not be part of the final plan though?
Yes, absolutely. And so it's really making sure we have that covered for the final plan to be able to look into that and have that included in their site plan and their applications. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Well, kind of like he was saying, I don't have a problem with maybe a couple of weeks, but I do have a problem with 2 months for some of the same reasons.
Nishidra?
I do like in the document, it says no later than December 1st. So that means it could happen tomorrow or October. It doesn't necessarily say they're going to break ground on December 1st, which would be my birthday. Just so that you all know it's part of the record now. So I do like the fact that they no later than December 1st. I do want to give notice to this project was delayed. And it was delayed not by the developers. It was delayed by us doing our due diligence and making sure that we are addressing as much as we possibly can. And bird migration was brought up a lot. I know because I don't necessarily succumb to birds. And so I remember bird migration a lot. And I think that for him or for anyone to take time to look at what is the impact and how can we mitigate this, because this was a concern by the constituents, and have that addressed. I don't want to have a slippery slope where things are brought up, concerns are brought up, mitigations, ideas are brought forth to try to fix that, and then that's shot down as well. So I do want to give onus to the fact that we did discuss bird migration, we did discuss the impact of that, and we're trying to mitigate that as best as we can. So I really appreciate that they have a little bit more time, because we delayed the process and we need to own that.
Thank you. Brandy?
I just wanted to put it out there real quick. A part of the, Michelle brought up the staff side of things. And just to give you an idea of the process. So they got the approvals on July 14th to try to turn around engineering plans, site plans, landscaping plans, lighting plans, all of that stuff in such a short period of time. It just doesn't work very well. So part of the recommendation comes from staff saying, we would like to see an extension because it gives us ample opportunity to be able to have good plans submitted, right? Because if plans are kind of rushed together to meet these deadlines, there's a lot of conditions that come along with those plans. There's a lot of areas, check boxes that you have to check off. So part of that is development process. We're already in August. By the time they would submit something, it would be September. We wouldn't even make a site plan review deadline for the P&Z meeting in September for them to start October 1st. So just to give you a little kind of, how process works.
Thank you, Brandy. Bill, I think you had your hand up.
I'd like to make a motion to change the date of starting to October 15th at the latest.
Bill has made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
Motion fails. All right. We're at a point where I would accept a motion to approve the December 1st date.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Colleen. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just to clarify, I assume the motion is to adopt the resolution.
To adopt the resolution. Yes, thank you. Abby?
I just wanted to verify, like, once the developer looks into the, bird mitigation issues in consultation with village staff, will the P&Z committee and or village board, I guess, hear back about that, like what their kind of general plan is?
Yes.
And I know Jim Simpson, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Jim, but I know that you had indicated that P&Z would be looking at this issue, that it was of concern to you too. So I think we can count on Jim to also be a watchdog on it.
And I guess I was waiting for an opportunity to talk, but yeah, I personally am in favor of it because I do feel we delayed the developer to get the public input. And I think it was all good public input that we received, and the number of comments that we received. I think we need to do our due diligence and make sure we have like the bird mitigation. And there was a number of different things that I had list off, probably 5 to 10 different things that we want to take into account when we're reviewing the site plan. So I think it's good to whatever have December 1st as a date myself.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. There's any further discussion? Otherwise, I would move to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-5-2. Sorry. High math there. All right. Now we'll go back to our regular appearances. Mike, do you want to start with Bear Tree or?
We just wanted to make a couple of comments. We know you're going into closed session on this, and we're not going to, make a big presentation of our maps and everything. I did pass out, the question was raised at our last meeting. Could somebody please give us something that didn't look like it was, hundreds of pages written by attorneys? So I tried to boil this down, and the clerk passed out the motion that I put together, just basically saying, hey, what we're looking for is, could you please endorse the concept plan, and could you waive the park fees? Now, as you know, we have a dispute about should there be any park fees or not, but I'm simplifying this by just saying, hey, would you waive it? And the key statistics are the donation of the ballpark area would be 7.82 acres, and the amount of fee in lieu that would be required for 187 housing units, which is what we've got in this concept plan, is 6.88 acres. So we've got enough in there. If you say, hey, whether it goes to a nonprofit or goes to the village, we're doing an adequate job as far as parks are concerned. So that's a kind of a straightforward and simple way of looking at it without getting into all the other statistics. I know Dwight Ziegler did send out, I think directly to all of you by email, his calculations and explanation of what's involved, but I wanted to boil it down to the essence there. And so that's why I did put that together. So hopefully when you go into closed session, you'll consider this and agree that it's a good plan. There's a lot of different types of housing in the area, as Mike has explained in the past, and some of it's affordable. Others are economical, I guess I'll put it that way. I think they'll fill needs in the village, and it'll be a very nice neighborhood, we believe, and it's going to have some nice amenities that would be very attractive, and they would go with the things that are already in that area there. So I don't know, Mike, if you want to add anything.
I'd like just to address a couple of things that we heard from the P&Z at the P&Z meeting and the comments that were made there. There was a concern that the residents make sure that the residents are able to use the park, be able to come in and use the baseball field or get on the field and not be locked up. I heard that from a couple different members. So, whether the outfield is used for kicking the ball around or doing other things, just that you would see in a normal neighborhood park, I guess. And, staff's review or Mark's review had indicated that there is a couple acre need, 2 to 3 acres for some playground equipment and some field use, like like the Fox Hill development has with similar density. So there is I think a need for some type of space there. And going beyond that, there was some comments about just pulling the multifamily off of Windsor Road and leaving that commercial. And with an updated concept plan, we've accommodated that. And we talked about some circulation and trail connections. And we don't need to get into the concept any more than you care to tonight, or any more than you want to tonight. And I'm happy to answer any questions or bring up the drawings if you have anything else. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we should emphasize, Mike, that Josh's condo, his 18-unit condo project, we did get site plan approval from the P&Z the other night. The other things in here, many of them were going to require, zoning, and they'll have to go through planning and zoning and so on. So this is, we're talking conceptual approval for those things, and there'll be further action both by the PNC and by this board when we get to some of the details.
Thank you. Any questions for? Okay. All right, I don't see questions, but I appreciate the shorthand. All right. Thank you. Don't go too far. Steve?
So I don't know that there's any action coming out of closed session or this particular development.
We're going to discuss it, but we're not taking action on it tonight. So, but he's here for Savannah Brooks too.
Sure. You can, anybody can stay around if they want, just don't have expectations.
You. All right, Mike is here for Savannah Brooks and Jerry, Don.
Yeah, I put down that I was here to answer questions. Don and Jerry may want to comment as well.
Blake, were you not wanting to appear now? Okay, thank you.
I just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to try this. We could just continue the way we were and make it commercial. In the 25 years that I've been in this business, the biggest thing I have are the people that live in my communities to make a better community. My son here, we started building parks 25 years ago. Jerry was a little kid. He was in high school or whatever. Every Saturday, many long hours. And if you've ever been to the Savannah Brooks Park, you see the graduation parties. It wouldn't have had to been, it could have been less than 50% of what's there, much less. We would have fulfilled what we needed. So we've always been very passionate about everything we've done. And looking at this proposal that we have by putting a berm, planting trees, and having a tremendous addition to the community, it gives it a more livable feel. The other thing I just want to touch on briefly is we were asked by the village to build that little piece of road. That's you'll be talking about that later on, where we got an MRO bond. And if a mother and her son or daughter is in a coffee shop and they want to go down and visit that beautiful park, they don't have to be a resident living there. It's a big part of a holistic community. And that's why as I go forward, I want to make sure that what we do is making a good community, not just for the people living there. We're finally getting some traction in the commercial retail. And we want to be in a position where we can help people. And at the same time, if you're in there shopping and you're able to drive around that community, it's just like when you go on a vacation. If you went to Galena, Illinois, people go there because of all the cool things. And that's why I want to have the ability to continue working and make it a holistic community. Thank you.
Yes, I just want to add a little bit. The existing park we built in Savannah Brooks, without paying ourselves really anything, we've spent close to $6,000 per unit just in the single family for the park improvement fees. You know, and we've built it and gave that instead of the village collecting park improvement fees, which I don't know, I'm guessing they're 2,000 to 2,500, somewhere in there. If anybody would know, that'd be great. But we're pushing $6,000, and that's money we spent, and we're glad to spend it, and we feel we got a beautiful park. I think the big elephant in the room is this MRO bond, and I've been racking my brain to try to explain why there's nothing wrong with it. And I just can't begin to even fathom what is wrong with it. It's just become this big issue that I don't think needs to be an issue. And I feel a little bit like we've never had the chance to be able to really talk through it and answer questions. If it would be okay, I'd like to answer questions of anybody about it. Or if it's not an issue, then we'll move on. But I just don't know where to start in talking about this issue when I don't really know what the true issue is. That's all.
Yeah, I think the key thing is it was entered into in good faith at the time. Everybody thought this would be a commercial. So that's the reason the transaction was done. It was not an incentive payment. It was a reimbursement for actually building improvements that you as a village own. So the one other thing I wanted to mention is we would like to get this resolved. We're hoping to file our application with our final development plan in our plat. I think Mark Ruffers told me to aim for the 27th of August. So that's our goal. So hopefully you can approve our comp plan amendment and our preliminary development plan amendment.
Thank you. Are there questions for these gentlemen? If not, we'll say thank you. We'll look forward to the discussion later.
Thanks.
Thanks. Is Waste Management with us?
Yes, Mike Scheinleber is on with us.
Yep, I'm here.
Mike, did you want to address some of the concerns that I've outlined for you with the board? I know the board has been hearing from the residents as well on the variety of issues. So I don't know if you can address those things.
Yeah. So I talked to Sean. He's the route manager down there. It sounded like the missed dumpster pickups were those were happening in the beginning when we first took the contract over. He believes those are now picked up routinely and not missed. Obviously, if you guys think it's more recent, let me know. And then the residents being told Waste Management doesn't serve DeForest. I talked to Shelley and Michelle, and I think too was just another migration issue in the beginning. That they've trained up the customer service people now because the wording for the way advanced disposal accounts came into our systems were different than the way we worded them. So they were having trouble finding the accounts right away. I believe Sean sent you guys the reporting of the tonnage, and he said that he'll send that monthly. Does that work for you guys, a monthly report for the tonnage?
Yep, that's what we had been expecting with the agreement.
Okay. Yep. So he'll send that monthly now. And then with the additional trucks and routes, Sean said that he added a help out route, but with the staffing issues, hasn't been able to always run it. He recommended that he said the normal route's a little too big to finish without help. Best plan. Sorry, I'm fighting a cold here. Best plan would be to split the recycling, maybe have half the village go 1 week and half the other week. So right now, I know you guys are every other week, odd weeks. So, maybe doing half the village odd week, half the village even week would be something to consider. And then the routes would be a little smaller. That's obviously something you guys can think about and get back. And he also put a new driver on the recycling route, hoping to be a little quicker on that. It's a new driver. So I know last week, I think we missed one of the subdivisions, but I believe we were there at 6:30 that evening to get it the same day. The hydraulic spill, he said that was 100% on the driver. The driver didn't notice the air for part of a subdivision. So that was obviously something that he coached the driver on. Obviously, we do pre and post checks trying to make sure there's no spills or breakdowns along the way. And obviously always just coaching our team to make sure if there is a spill to clean it up, and catch it right away. And that's also kind of the same thing with the debris that you guys sent. I believe it's probably about 5 weeks ago, a picture of some debris. And he just coached more up on the driver, just, keep your eyes open and pick up any debris that's laying out. So I believe those were the issues I had listed. Do you guys have more on that you'd like to talk about?
Well, we've had in the past, well, since you've taken over, we've fielded 63 complaints that our staff has taken. Again, here in July, there's been, I would guess, 4 to 5 of them where they've called in and we're told waste management doesn't serve the forest. So there's still that issue, ongoing issue. It certainly happened early on. And I know, I think it's 624 Valeria. When I know the address, it's bad news because I've heard from them often, but that dumpster's routinely been missed as recently as a week or 2 ago again. So those are things that we're hoping to get corrected. I know the spill, the cleanup effort it's an illicit discharge. It hasn't quite met up to the standards we would have hoped for. I don't know if those can be addressed, but and I know our village president's home has been missed on multiple occasions, as well as where that spill happened was on her street, and several other streets in the neighborhood. So,
Ms. Johnson knows down. So I'll reach out to Sean tomorrow about that 624. He might be able to pull photos and stuff of it being picked up. But I'll get you an answer on that and see if it was missed. See if it was missed, and then just work with Sean to make sure that we're picking that up every week.
Okay, questions for Mike? I would just offer, because the spill is on our street and my neighbors are not appreciative of it. It's pretty significant staining, and it's everywhere there was a garbage can, all the way up and down the street, and then a trail that goes not only in where they've turned around to go back, and it goes then back to Main Street and turns right. I mean, it's significant. And while they used a power washer to try and clean it up, it really didn't fix it. And it's just one of those things that sort of stands out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, could I get the name of the street by chance?
Yeah, it's Meadow Lane.
Okay. Thank you.
Abby?
I was just wondering, what's the debris issue?
So I saw, Jodo, I'm not sure if the pictures came from you. I think Sean sent them over probably about 5 weeks ago, but it looks like there was a can that was kind of on a corner. I know it was a windy day, and it looked like maybe some of the debris in the can before it was picked up blew out of the can.
yeah, there was an issue of broken glass. It was in front of my home. That was left there from the recycling. There was also broken glass on Danbury Court that came from recycling that was left behind. We've had reports as well of trash blowing out of the waste management vehicles as they drive down the road. So the loads maybe are not secured appropriately. And then the care in which they empty them into the hopper and then throw the cans back into yards is a concern. And that causes some debris being left around.
Abby?
I guess, Mike, I was wondering, what's the timeline that these issues, especially the ones that have happened most recently with the hydraulic spill, the debris, residents being told they're not in the service area. What's the timeline that you will put forward to fix those issues?
Yeah, so tomorrow I'll talk to the customer service department about the people calling in and being told they're not serviced. I'll speak with Sean and them and see if there's any type of additional cleanup we can do on the oil spill. Obviously, we just have to, keep coaching our drivers and stuff to make sure they're not leaving behind any debris or broken glass that comes out of the truck or the containers. So I'm hoping to have, feedback and some action plans by the end of this week to Judd.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mike, for coming. We appreciate it.
No problem. And thank you guys and girls.
Thank you. All right. Moving on then, there is no old business. Move to new business. And the first item of new business is discussion and action regarding hiring deputy finance director, including engaging recruitment company. Let me just open the next couple of items with some statements that I wanted to make, and then Steve will talk about the finance director. As you know, and we've all known for a couple of years, Steve thinks he needs to retire. We've tried hard to tell him he doesn't need to retire. It's hard to think about him not renewing his contract, and it's hard to think after 20 years of the village without Steve at the helm and having his guiding hand. Steve's position is unique. He had the skills and experience to be both an administrator and a finance director, and that made him extremely well qualified to conduct the business of the village. So we're going to have tough duty figuring out how to replace those positions. Tonight, we're going to be talking about next steps we need to take for hiring a deputy finance director and also hiring an administrator. Steve's going to address the finance director and also update us on some of the changes that have occurred within the village staff. Steve and Lou and Judd and Corey and others have been working hard to come up with a plan that would stabilize all the duties and the management of work at the village. Looking for ways to work with all of our staff to find their best skills and to find a way to replace people. We have Lou, who's been with us for forever. And she's leaving on November 19th. She's been working hard on her transition. And so Steve will talk a little bit about how we're dealing with some of Lou leaving and the staff, as well as hiring of the finance director. So Steve, we'll start with you.
Thank you. So my contract is up on January 31st. And so it's time to start looking at the future, and that totally rests in the board's hands. We do not have a deputy finance director position, and I don't have authority to hire a recruitment service. So that's why I'm in front of you today. When we go to hire the finance director, it really will be the future finance director is what the intent is here. Since my contract requires me to be the administrator and finance director through that contract, that I can't really hire a finance director by title. So the person will know that they'll be the future finance director. So I'm coming before you today to get not thumbs, but motion to go ahead and we're planning to work with QTI. That's who we used to bring Michelle on board and recruit for Judd's position. They've been very helpful in that, and I have great confidence that they know where to fish for these people. It's not easy to find talent that has a number of years experience, and the quickest we would likely to get somebody on board would be probably mid-October, which provides me a few months between that point and my end of my contract to train that person. That's not a lot of time. There will be time off. There'll be holidays, and there'll be scurrying about with other things. So there's a lot going on. So that's the starting point for a conversation there. Before you take action, I suppose I can fill in some other things. So we are extremely busy, as Jane pointed out, on all accounts, all department heads. It is unprecedented. I think it even rivals 2015-16 when we had TID6 going crazy. So it's great for our community. Lou Ann, since she is transitioning people and getting her duties, which are multiple, many things trained to new people. We can't replace whatever many years of experience, but we're trying real hard in a short period of time. She has resigned as deputy administrator, I totally appreciate and respect. I need help. Michelle and I are taking over CDA. She's by far doing more than I am, but Picking up the books has put pressure on me. Doing the accounting, the audit's coming up next week on that. Yeah, along with budget time, which seems like it's coming faster than ever. With, I guess, a lot of new staff building budgets this year too. So Corey being out, that's falling on other people's shoulders as well. And just a lot going on. So what I've done is appointed Judd as the deputy administrator. I think it's given comfort to staff that there is continuity here. It's given me comfort that he can carry these things and I can hand things off that I am assured will be taken care of while I'm focusing more on the financial picture through this period of time. Next, the board will talk about the administrator, which probably will require some of my attention to and training that person, bring that person up to speed as well. So that's in front of you tonight. I am here to answer any questions you might have.
Take questions, and at some point, we'll also talk about the fact that Steve has agreed to talk with us about some consulting even after his contract ends. One of the things that frightens me is a new person who doesn't know our budgets and our financing and our loans, and having to go through an audit from years where we didn't do, he wasn't or she wasn't involved in the work. And also the fact that we're going to need guidance in a number of matters going forward. So we can also talk about that. But on this one, we're at a point where we need to think about the finance director position and engaging a recruitment company.
Just to add, the recruitment company asks for 25% of the contract, the next fiscal year's contract with whoever we hire. Right now, I believe we're looking at between $90,000 and $110,000 to be the range for that position. We think we can get a pretty decent candidate for that. It's in the ballpark with other communities our size. We just don't know what kind of experience we're going to get. So that's the price tag on that. Those funds can be split. We have many funding sources, taxpayers, TIDs, utilities. So that will be allocated over those based on my salary, basically, as finance director. So it isn't as impactful to the taxpayer as one would think. And then that person would come on board, say it's even October 6th. You might see, $30-some thousand impact with benefits or salaries, again, allocated over a number of different funding sources.
Thank you. Questions? Rebecca?
Now, we're just talking about 8.1, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is part of your job right now?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? So did you have, I was going to say, we can start with the position. We need a permission to move forward with the hiring, or do you want to start with recruitment tonight?
Both. So I don't care what order.
All right. So people want to discuss it more, or do you want to make a motion, Bill?
Yeah, this is full-time job?
Yes.
So you're doing two jobs and getting paid for one, or
One and
a half?
not that, no.
Oh,
I can show you some spreadsheets if you want.
I mean, have we looked at, could we farm this out to, what's the name of that firm that does our audits?
Baker Tilly.
Baker Tilly. Would it be more expensive, or is it more advantageous for us to have a person in Village Hall?
Well, Baker Tilly itself couldn't do it because it'd be a conflict on the audit services.
Or another company like?
Another company could do it. It'd be very, very expensive.
Would it?
Yeah,
Okay.
they charge probably $250 an hour.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it's almost, I would say it's a full-time position for every other suburban community in Dane County.
Right. Well, I don't think people realize how much you do and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Retirement is good. All right, thanks.
Any other questions? So I would entertain a motion to approve moving forward on hiring a finance director and securing services from QTI.
It's on the agenda for discussion only.
Oh.
Certainly a contract with any of those entities will have to come before the board, but that's. Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong item.
Make a
Sorry.
motion to approve hiring finance director and
I'll second.
outsource the looking, what do you call it? Looking for,
Recruitment,
yeah, recruitment. That's the word. Thank you.
okay. And are you okay with QTI?
Sounds good.
Okay.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Jim, did you have your hand up or were you? No.
Nope, I was just turning the mute off.
All right. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Now we're moving on to the 8.2, which is the discussion regarding administrator hiring process. And this one is just discussion. One of the things that I think would be very helpful is if we could start working with QTI and working to define the position and looking at kind of the process. We have an unusual situation now because Steve isn't going to be doing, or the person isn't going to be doing both positions. So we have a little bit of need to talk about what that looks like, what the new position is going to look like. And QTI, I think, is very good at helping with the process of designing job descriptions and working with us, as is Corey and others. And we have Steve's expertise with us. So I'm hoping to hear from you all on your comfort with beginning to talk with QTI on that one as well. Bill?
Yeah, hopefully, you're a jack of all trades and hopefully we have a good job description. Job qualifications. What are we going to require as an administrator? A degree in this, a degree in that, experience? I think that's kind of important. Do we look at somebody with 2 years of experience? What is a rocket science from Harvard or things like that? What's going to be important? Of course, salary. I think Steve has been underpaid for what he's been doing. I don't know what there's a shovel under here. I just wonder what pay range we're looking at, for an administrator. Of course, good ones don't come cheap, so. But just having a good job description, qualifications in our search.
Yep. Jim, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment, say I'm an engineer.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Poor guy.
well, hopefully we'll get him back. Rebecca?
Well, I had, while we're waiting for Jim to get back, I did have a question in the timing of some of this. I had an email exchange with Steve the other day on the 28th, asking about this issue because I had a conversation a couple months ago and it was just kind of just mentioned in passing that he was going to be retiring. And then he said that he had given you, he had sent you the notice of non-renewal, but then in fact, it was actually the next day that it would happen. But then that was not provided to us all as soon as you got that. Why Why was that not provided to all the board? Because he serves at the pleasure of the board.
Because we were bringing it after I had discussion with him and when we were going to discuss it on the agenda.
But that is something that you should have sent to all of us immediately upon receipt. Why did that not
I
happen?
don't think there was any obligation to do that.
He serves at the pleasure of the board.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm not arguing about it.
I'm not arguing. I'm
Steve?
bringing out a point.
I guess I'm confused. You said you reached out to me on the 28th,
Yeah, it was Wednesday.
and my note,
The letter here is dated the 29th.
take a look at the month.
Oh, June, excuse me. Okay, so June.
It was done prior to talking to you.
Okay, that's fine. But why did it take over a month for us to find out about this?
We have known about his retirement date for 2 years. And
Why were we not provided a copy of this letter as soon as you received it?
I have told you why.
You're
that's my answer.
overstepping your authority by doing that.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Point of order. I'm going to defer to you, Al. The trustee is also a village president. She does not have the authority to keep this type of information from the village board. He serves at the pleasure of the board, not the president.
He serves under contract and his contract has an expiration date. There's no requirement that contract that's expiring be non-renewed. I don't know what you're showing me. I can't read it from here.
He provided Jane with a notice of non-renewal. It was not sent to the rest of the board members upon receipt.
It's simply a notification that he doesn't intend to renew a contract. I guess I don't know of any source of an obligation for anybody to share that with anybody at a particular time.
So the board members don't have the right to have that information until until it serves her purpose.
There's just nothing in any ordinance or law that I know of that sets a deadline for providing that kind of information.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Is there any further discussion regarding Steve's replacement position? Jim? Oh, Jim's back.
Yeah, thank you. I had to switch to my mobile phone. I'm glad I was able to figure that out. My computer died. I guess the comment I was going to make is my background is engineering. So I know like most communities, they have a director of public works. And I'm assuming, I guess I'll ask Steve, or we're talking about using QTI, but I'm guessing most communities have different roles. And I just wonder if we've investigated that and know what is common practice. I'm assuming there's an administrator and a financial director. And we could potentially reach out and get job qualifications from neighboring communities, or have we done any of that research yet?
Yes, we have. We have a job description. We have pay information. We have a packet ready to roll out to QTI should the board go that direction, because Corey is on maternity leave. So we're thinking ahead. And yeah, a lot of communities have dual roles where the administrator also does economic development, or maybe does public service, or does human resources. I would certainly look at the savings involved when combining positions. I guess I've proven fairly effectively that the administrator can do other things. Administrators that don't have other focus become political, maybe. I don't know what they do. But you're also saving a benefit package, which when I started looking at the compensation and splitting these apart, it is significant. And it's not just pay, but it's all the benefits that go along with that. So I would look at what, maybe what could round out that administrator position. Or maybe the board decides we need more outreach, or we need more visits to the state capitol to influence legislation or, these types of things. So my 2 cents on that.
Good points, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Abby?
I guess I'll start with some of, sharing my, opinion or input. First things that come to mind is with the administrator hiring process. I mean, it's very much a big deal for us as a village board and as a community and village government, and how we function and work together going into the future. So with how important this is, I personally would like to see as wide a search as possible, both internal and external candidates, and looking to see who's out there and what talent we can tap into. I'm also curious if there's a way that we can, I don't know if it'd be through a survey or conversations or whatnot, but get staff input, staff throughout, village government, about, that role and what qualities work best. Might help inform the job description as well. And then my final opinion or input would be, I kind of hope that this process would be similar, but probably not as, probably not as prolonged as kind of the comprehensive plan process. I would appreciate if there's steps along the way of, doing, putting together like each step, like, the job description, coming back to us, getting our input. Then the next step, if that's, whatever that might be, like how wide of a net to cast out. I just really appreciate steps along the way that we can keep giving input, because it's such an important process. And I think we all have opinions on that and really want to do our due diligence in hiring someone to fill the very big shoes of Steve. I have some further questions, but I can let other people talk.
All right. Thank you, Abby. Any other comments or questions? Those are good suggestions, and we'll get updates as we go along. So Al?
I just want to point out for the board that the position of village administrator was created by charter ordinance. And that charter ordinance does have a general description of the duties and functions of the office. I mention that only because I think you want to review that. And if you do intend to make any kind of changes, there's a process for enacting a charter ordinance that takes a bit of time. So it might be something that if you are interested in changing the job duties and authorities, that you look at that early on in the process. And I can forward the charter ordinance to Luann to share with everybody.
Thank you. All right. I don't think we have to do 8.3. I think we've taken care of that in COW. 8.4, discussion and possible action regarding development related board notifications. One of the issues that has come forward is, I know Trustee Witherspoon, Trustee Landgraf have asked about what kind of information they can receive and when we're looking at development projects, or we're looking at new businesses coming to town. And so tonight we want to talk about that a little bit, because we all know that there are a number of concerns about exposure and confidentiality when information gets out too soon and gets posted. And we can lose great opportunities by not treating the information properly. So we want to talk a little bit about that tonight and get a better understanding of what people are looking for and when they want information. And I open that for discussion. I don't know if Michelle wants to add anything to it.
No, I'd just like to hear what the trustees have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Any Rebecca?
Yeah, I loved my conversation with you the other day, by the way. That was super helpful. Just kind of reiterating some of the things that I had mentioned. I do feel with the fact that we do go into closed sessions where we are legal, as trustees, legally bound to maintain confidentiality. I do feel that there should be a process whereby at periodic points in time in the process of negotiating, kind of like what I was talking about before, that, you know, sure, when it's just kind of, you know, you're discussing stuff, it's not really a, you know, a sure thing. Maybe just give us an idea of kind of a concept plan. But when it becomes more of a real thing, when you're actually negotiating stuff, I do feel that there should be some process where we are kept informed, at least in closed session. If not the name of the developer, a good idea of what's in store, so that we don't run into problems like we've had recently. And at some point in time, I feel it is important that we do learn who the developer is. I'm not sure. I know that there are situations where that might not work out, but I feel like in probably a good chunk of the development, we probably can get that information. And I just think it would really help the process a lot more, so that we're not caught off guard, so that we're better informed, so that we're not trying to make a decision in 2 days on something huge.
Judd?
Add that I think the board typically has been notified of things and is always brought into when the negotiations are happening. It's the upfront stuff that is the minutia, that the recruiting of a business that was not so consequential to boards. But when it came to the nitty gritty, when it got into it, that's when there's a lot more closed sessions and discussions are happening, and that information shared back and forth with the board, and the board is typically given ranges to staff to go forth and try to negotiate on that point. So I think I would say from us as staff, we've talked about there might have been there might be a better way when there's new trustees who are boarded on to share with them all the history that they're not aware of. That I think would alleviate your concerns had we had those kinds of practices in place, but it's certainly something that we didn't have then. We need to work on for the next time if there's turnover. But I think typically staff's been great at sharing all the information when they can, and with, you know, being as transparent in closed session with the boards on the various issues. So.
Thank you. Bill?
I agree with that. New trustees, that should be part of a onboarding procedure that I think we need to develop when we do get new people. Packets of information and information on what's going on, maybe they don't know what happened in December. They should know. They're on the board now. Just, it's not every other week. It's, I would say quarterly, 4 months. You know, sometimes nothing happens, but a lot is happening in this town. I agree that once it reaches the rumor stage or preliminary stage and it gets down to the nitty gritty, you know, like this hotel, we talked about it a while ago. The golf thing was presented last year as a concept, and I kind of chuckled, you know, it's like, oh, that's kind of a wild out there type of thing. And then all of a sudden it's presented to us and here's the deal, and it's a good deal, you know. And it turned out that maybe we should have been aware of it a little sooner, not to, and we are sworn to secrecy. We take an oath, and there are bad things that can happen to you if you let things out. So I'm not saying we're not informed, but it never hurts to be better informed. Thanks.
Abby.
I just want to say I really appreciate people's input so far, and I think this is a constructive discussion. And I would agree about points made regarding new trustees. I was a new trustee 4 years ago, and when I got on the board, there was quite a few board members that had been on for years. So definitely had a one up on me with that. And I think there were certain things that, of course, they understood or had the back history that I didn't have. And I did find during that first year or so that I felt like I was prepared pretty well, like just, with how village government in general works, like, the local government 101 class was really good and talking with staff. But getting DeForest specific information orientation is very useful. And I do see Village President Jane doing that. And I think, I think we can definitely do more because it's in all our best interests with, to have smooth transitions and for new trustees to kind of have the information they need as soon as possible. And then I also feel like, I am open to more information about, development proposals or possible, even if it's a bit early on. Because I think with each board, each board probably has their own unique approach or style. And perhaps our current makeup is one that does get a little bit more into the details or wants to get into the details more. And it might be just people's personalities or just having newer trustees. But I think that would be useful. At the same time, I guess having trust in Michelle or village staff that if they're not able to share certain information or don't think it would be beneficial, that we trust that there's a very good reason for that.
Signals up to his American teammates, going to finish just off the podium.
I think we managed to get pretty major project in, okay, I'm from Fond du Lac County, Fleet Farm or Farm and Fleet, which one is it? Fleet Farm, thank you. It's the opposite where I come from. I think we managed to get that big old project here in town pretty well, doing it the way we've been doing it. I think we need to be careful that we're not micromanaging our staff. They don't need that from us, and that's not our job. They're all professional. They've, in the last 5.5 or some years, they seem to have done a pretty good job that I've seen. So I guess we need to be careful about just how much we want to bring to the board in the event that something does somewhere along the way leak out. And I know you do deal in confidentiality with some of these people. But my biggest concern is that we're not micromanaging staff.
Thank you. Rebecca.
Just kind of following up on that, I'm not sure this is calling for micromanaging. It's just keeping the board better informed. It's not telling them what to do or what not to do. It's literally just keeping us better informed. That's it.
Thank you. All right. Michelle, from all the various positions, did you hear what you needed to hear?
It was helpful discussion. I think it was good to hear. I'm not sure exactly what direction, but I mean, maybe I think that's a conversation that I have with Steve, and maybe we come back to you with something. And I would look to Steve to direct me as such.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway I received here is that new trustees get more information up front about what types of things are happening. My personal feeling is that staff does staff work, board sets policy, board gives direction, board makes difficult decisions, and you're in the spotlight. But trust in staff that they're doing their job. So sometimes those decisions come very quickly because deals come together really quickly, even for us. And a lot of times it's Al cranking out hours late at night because their attorney finally got around to it. That happens more often than you'd believe. But you don't need to take action. You can say, no, I need more time. And it's been proven. Or the community needs to speak more. It's been proven. So I think what we're doing is fine. I think it's working. And if we have a couple concepts in front of you recently, you give you more time to look at this. That's great. A lot of businesses that actually buy this land from developers don't want you to know what's going on. They don't want their neighbors, their competitors knowing what's going on. What's that? Their employees. Good point. So I guess, while it's fun and nice and great to know, it doesn't really happen that way from our perspective. So I think we're doing a pretty good job. And, that's one of the reasons we did that concept plan out in TID 5 is to say, are you guys comfortable with this? Can we go try to find these people? One just happened to be in the neighborhood already, at that time and sniffing around. So that's how we did that and got your comfort and the thumbs up that Tay loves. And that does not like. So we're trying to do the best we can with the information we have and share it as timely as we think is appropriate. So please find some trust or faith in that.
Thank you. Are you wanting to speak?
Just to go on with what Steve was saying, I think one thing that Steve and I talked about doing before was kind of the development flyover, what we call a flyover, and like what's going on, what these TIDs are planned for, what's going on. I think there's definitely room for that. And we've wanted to do that. And so I'm thinking that there might be room for that somewhere in the discussion so that there's a little more comfort in what's planned for the area. Maybe that's part of it. And that's part of being new trustee, but also just a refresher.
Yep. And maybe we have another special meeting to discuss things again. So, okay. We'll move on then. All right, we're moving to presentation of ordinances. Ordinance 2021-019, an ordinance to amend section 28.02 2 of the DeForest Municipal Code relating to membership on the Village Ethics Committee. This is a pretty simple one. Kim Grimmer has been the attorney on the Ethics Committee for quite a while. He has retired. The wording in the ordinance is that you need to have a practicing attorney. So we are proposing, in order for Kim to continue, and frankly, as a retired attorney has more time and ability to sit on a committee than those who are billing by the hour, we were proposing that we simply change that one word in the ordinance. Al, do you want to add anything to that?
The only thing I'd really add is that being the person that everybody comes to say, will you prevail on one of your colleagues to do this volunteer work? It's very difficult to find people who are willing to do that, particularly practicing lawyers who make money when they do things to drive up to DeForest to go to committee meetings is not something that they had in their career plan. So I think that just expanding the potential pool of candidates to allow for retired people would significantly improve the prospects of keeping an attorney on there at all times. It's kind of an unusual requirement that one of your members be an attorney, especially when you don't pay them. So to make it a little bit easier to keep that position filled, I think allowing for retired attorneys would make a lot of sense. The ordinance still does require that they be licensed and active. They just don't have to have an active practice with this amendment.
Thank you. All right. Yes, Tashidra.
Al, I just wanted to say thank you for adding that little piece at the end that they are required to have an active license. Because that was one of my things that gave me pause was when you retire, you kind of, the wheels stop turning as much. And if they're not actively practicing or doing what they need to do and continuing education to keep their, what? Don't do it. You're already practically retired, really? So let's not.
I'm retired.
Here we go. And then I will not speak any longer. I just really appreciated that last part that they are keeping their license active, because then what's the purpose of having, you know, the requirement of having a lawyer? So with that, I will yield the rest of my time, Madam President.
I have Lou and Al.
Sorry. I just wanted to add that this came about as I was trying to organize the next ethics committee meeting. I have talked with both Abe Degnan and Jane Cahill Wolfgram about this proposed amendment. This was something that came about with me doing my research to proceed with this. The parties are all in agreement that this makes sense. I just want to make sure the board was aware of that conversation.
Al?
And just one other clarification, the lawyer who sits on the committee is a member of the committee. He is not the lawyer for the committee. So he's not providing legal advice to the committee. He's just somebody that knows a lot about legal stuff who is on the committee.
Team member?
Yes. Jim?
Thank you, Jane. I guess I wanted to sort of, and I thank you also, Al. I didn't know not being practicing, that gave me pause like Desidra. So it's good to know that they're doing the continuing education. But the question I have, is this somewhat normal to have an attorney on the ethics board? Or is, I think you said his name is Kim, is he a citizen? Should we just straight up change it to a forced citizen member and maybe have our village attorney as an ex-official non-voting member? Or is it really important to have a attorney on a committee or not?
It's not uncommon for attorneys to be appointed to ethics boards. I don't know how common it is that it is required by ordinance that one of the members or more than one of the members be an attorney. The problem you're going to have in a place like DeForest is you don't have a lot of lawyers who live here. So you have a very small pool that you could pick from if you were going to require local residency. If you could, that'd be great. I mean, I'm sure that lawyers can find other things to do with their retirement time. I think I can only think of 2 or 3 lawyers that are actually residents of the village, although I certainly don't know all the residents.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Tashidra. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by Rebecca. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we're moving to 10.1. We took some things out of order, so I had to make sure I hadn't missed something. Resolution 2021-078, a resolution accepting the lowest qualified bid and awarding a contract for resurfacing of River Road. Judd.
The information was in the packet. Are there any questions for me?
I would make a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Abby. Any discussion or questions? Jim?
Just a question. Judd, do you know if the curb ramp improvements were included?
Curb ramp improvements?
Yeah, I had once commented that I was unsure if their curb ramps are ADA compliant at Innovation and the Future River Road.
Greg, are you still on that you might be able to tell us if they're in compliance or if we know that answer?
We'll definitely look into it. And we'll let you know, what we put in that bid. I just can't remember if those were included or not.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't want to lose sight of that. We can always include it in the next thing too.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
We'll double check the ADA compliance.
Okay.
All right. There are no other questions or comments. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Communications, I think there is none. Committee, commission, board reports, there are none. Administrators report, Steve, do you have one?
I do not.
Okay. Public affairs. I think we've gone through all the stuff in my report. So I think I would entertain a motion to convene into closed session.
I would make a motion to convene into closed session.
Second.
We have motion and seconds. Would you know roll call?
Trustee Simpson,
Aye.
trustee Witherspoon,
Aye.
trustee Allen,
Aye.
trustee Langraff.
Aye.
Trustee Lowry,
Aye.
trustee Little. President Cahill Wolfgram.
Aye. All right. All right. Are we good to go? All right, thank you. All right, so we will continue with 17.1, the resolution authorizing the president and clerk to execute a TID bond on Savannah Brooks Phase 2. I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve resolution 2021-077 as is.
All right, we have a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Jim, is he there?
Yeah, I said aye.
Okay. All right. 17.2, an ordinance 2021-015. Ordinance to approve an amendment to the preliminary development plan for Savannah Brooks planned unit development.
I would move that we approve effective upon the full execution of the resolution 2021-077.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Just to clarify, the execution of the amendment approved by
Yes.
that resolution is what you're referring to?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor or any further discussion? I'm sorry. Otherwise, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 17.3, ordinance 2021-016, an ordinance to adopt an amendment, future land use map in the comprehensive plan of the Village of DeForest, affecting land within the Savannah Brooks development east of Williamsburg Way and south of Highway 19, Village of DeForest. Entertain a motion.
I move that we approve that with the same condition.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by Abby. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Jim, did you vote?
Yep, I voted aye on all three of those.
All right, thank you. All right. Do we have any other business to come before the board? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we're adjourned at 9:12.